Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, a massive geopolitical energy shock threatens a global economic crash. A stealth Chinese AI model quietly dethrones the West, and Google's new Vibe design has the creative class asking if they are completely cooked. Let's get into it.
Oh, it is a heavy wire today.
It really is. So whether you were prepping for a boardroom meeting or you just want to know what is actually driving the chaos in your feed, our mission today is simple. We are breaking down the raw wire of today's top trends to uncover what is actually moving the markets and the culture. I'm looking to the headlines, but we need to look deeper.
Right, because while everyone is distracted by the noise, the flashy top-level numbers, the real story is always in the second-order effects.
Exactly.
We need to be asking who is quietly losing money right now and what systems are fracturing in the background, because the consensus view is almost always a step behind reality.
For sure. So let's unpack this macro picture first, because this is the lead story with just the absolute highest stakes. There's a viral thread from @Balaji's breaking down the escalating situation in the Middle East.
Yeah, this one is rough.
Just impartially laying out the facts from the wire here.
Yeah.
Since February 28th, U.S. and Israel strikes on Iranian facilities, specifically targeting energy hubs like Karg Island and refineries in Bahrain, have escalated dramatically. We are looking at a suspension of nearly 20% of the global crude supply.
20%. Just think about that.
Yeah. Oil has already crossed $150 a barrel in Asia. Balaji is pointing to a severe global economic crash and a massive humanitarian crisis.
And look, the market is desperately underpricing the agricultural fallout here. It's not just the pain you're going to feel at the gas pump.
Right, you mean like food prices?
Exactly. When you knock out that much crude and natural gas infrastructure, you immediately threaten global fertilizer production.
Oh, because of the ammonia.
Yes. Modern agriculture relies heavily on natural gas as a feedstock to produce ammonia for fertilizer. So you break the energy supply chain, you break the fertilizer supply chain.
Wow.
Yeah. No fertilizer means a catastrophic hit to global food yields. Crises of this magnitude force immediate aggressive adaptation. Balaji actually points out that this shock acts as a forced pivot toward energy alternatives. We are talking about the rapid acceleration of China's cold chemicals processes and power-to-X tech.
Right. I've seen power-to-X trending all morning, but we should probably clarify what that actually means on the ground.
Sure.
It's essentially taking surplus renewable energy, like solar or wind, and using it to synthesize raw hydrocarbons or hydrogen. You are chemically building fuel rather than pumping it out of the ground.
That is the core mechanism, yeah. The Middle East oil dependency is effectively being burned down, which forces massive industrial powers to synthesize their own energy independence.
Which perfectly brings us to the domestic front. We have a post from @unusual_Wales reporting a massive development regarding our own energy grid. The U.S. has surged its energy storage battery production capacity from 7 gigawatt-hours in 2023 to 70 gigawatt-hours today.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah. Bloomberg is confirming we now have the capacity to supply 100% of our energy storage systems domestically. And cell manufacturing is actually projected to exceed demand by the end of 2026. A lot of this is fueled by the intense energy demands of AI data centers, plus tariffs pushing out Chinese imports.
Well, Chinese imports currently hold 2/3 of the market share strictly because they are cheaper.
Right. But I am looking at these numbers, and I have a hard time buying this narrative of total domestic triumph. Bragging about our cell manufacturing capacity right now feels like, bragging that we just built the world's largest automotive factories while China still owns all the steel mines.
Oh, absolutely.
The factory floor is completely useless without the raw materials, right?
That structural vulnerability is exactly what the top-level numbers obscure. We have the physical cell manufacturing capacity now, which looks great on a spreadsheet.
Right.
But the fundamental component that goes into those lithium-ion cells is graphite. And the U.S. still heavily relies on sourcing that raw graphite from China.
So we aren't really independent at all.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the exploding energy needs of the AI sector are vastly outpacing these storage gains. You can build 70 gigawatt-hours of storage capacity, but if the grid itself cannot generate enough raw power to run the data centers and actually fill those batteries, you haven't solved the bottleneck.
Yeah, we are facing this massive physical energy bottleneck, but the AI sector isn't slowing down to wait for the grid to catch up. They're finding workarounds through radical software efficiency.
Oh, yeah, they have to.
Look at what just happened on the OpenRouter leaderboard. A mysterious stealth model called Hunter Alpha hit #1, processing 310 billion tokens in a single day.
Unbelievable volume.
It beat established models like Minimax M2.5 by 31% in usage.
And for a minute, the consensus was that this had to be DeepSeek v4, right? Because of the Chinese training data and the 1 trillion parameter MoE architecture.
Right, but it was just revealed to be Xiaomi's MiMo V2 Pro. This is just an early test build. Xiaomi is making a $5.6 billion push into frontier AI models, moving way beyond their traditional consumer hardware.
It's a huge pivot for them.
It is. But before we get into the benchmarks, we should explain how they are achieving this without melting the power grid. You mentioned the MO, or Mixture of Experts architecture.
Yeah, this is key.
Rather than firing up a massive trillion-parameter neural network for a simple math query which burns an immense amount of compute and power, a MoE model acts like a highly efficient switchboard. It only routes the prompt to the specific subnetworks or experts trained to handle that specific task.
And that routing mechanism is how they achieve these staggering cost reductions. The benchmarks completely reflect that efficiency. It's scored 78% on the SWE Bench Verified Coding benchmark, beating Claude Sonnet 4.6, and it manages to do it at 67% lower input costs.
That's wild. But why drop it stealthy?
Because dropping a trillion parameter model anonymously is a calculated strategy. It's the only way to get unbiased, raw user feedback in a market completely blinded by hype and brand loyalty.
That makes sense.
If you attach a massive corporate name to a model, the evaluations immediately skew based on user bias. But zooming out, look at what this means for U.S. dominance. You have consumer smartphone companies in China silently dropping frontier models that beat top-tier Western counterparts on complex coding tasks at a fraction of the cost.
The traditional tech mode is just evaporating.
Exactly.
Well, the U.S. ecosystem is throwing a counterpunch on the hardware side to try and protect that mode. There's a post from @NVIDIA AI Dev showing they delivered the very first DGX Station GB300 directly to Andrej Karpathy's Eureka Labs.
Oh man, that machine is a beast.
Jensen Huang even wrote a personalized note on it, welcoming the agentic era of AI. We need to put this machine into context for you guys. It is essentially a desk-side supercomputer. It integrates a Grace CPU with the Blackwell Ultra GPU, and it has 748 gigabytes of coherent memory, pushing 20 petaflops of compute.
Just having 20 petaflops of compute sitting next to your coffee mug is a foundational shift in industry mechanics.
It sounds like sci-fi.
It does. But consider what happens to the massive cloud monopolies like the AWS and Azure data centers when an elite researcher like Karpathy can run a trillion parameter model locally. It completely decentralizes AI research.
Right, he doesn't need to rent time from Amazon.
Exactly. He is doing these auto research projects, automating hundreds of reasoning experiments simultaneously on a single machine. By lowering the barrier to long-running reasoning-based systems, you shatter the bottleneck of cloud compute rental. Researchers no longer have to wait in line for data center allocation.
So you take these highly efficient models, give them a desk-side supercomputer, and suddenly they aren't confined to a corporate lab sandbox anymore. You get powerful, autonomous agents operating in the wild.
Which is where things get really interesting.
Definitely. At Y Combinator just announced the launch of AltX, founded by an ex-Citadel engineer and an ML researcher. They are building AI agents that ingest massive, complex real estate deal documents and output fully built, auditable underwriting models in Excel in seconds.
In seconds?
Yeah, and every single number is cited back to the source document.
They are actively automating quantitative finance analysts right out of their own spreadsheets.
They really are. YC threw in a viral joke on the post, pointing out that AltX managed to launch faster than GTA 6, which is officially delayed again to November 19th, 2026.
Of course it is.
Right. The speed of AI deployment is staggering. But giving agents this level of autonomy is actually terrifying a large segment of developers. Nick Adobos posted his shock over Anthropic's new Claude Code feature. They're using skill.md files to let developers embed raw shell commands, like GitHub CLI commands, directly into AI prompts.
Oh, this is a hot debate right now.
The agent can pull request diffs, read file changes, and summarize them, and the underlying model doesn't even see the execution happen.
Giving an AI arbitrary shell command access is just a glaring vulnerability. I mean, the shell or bash terminal is the raw command line of a computer. It is the brainstem of the operating system where you can delete system files, rewrite directories, and execute core functions.
It feels akin to handing a toddler the keys to a bulldozer.
That's a great way to put it.
We are essentially waiting for a catastrophic exploit.
Well, Anthropic constantly beats the drum of safety and alignment, but then opens up vulnerabilities for untrusted skills to run arbitrary shellcode. The potential for data exfiltration or malicious API calls is massive.
Is there an alternative?
Yeah. On the other side of this debate, you have developers like at ThinkDXR experimenting with ripping out the Bash terminal entirely. He's using Rivet's new Secure Exec SDK, which leverages Cloudflare Workers tech, to run JavaScript instead.
Okay, what does that do?
That gives you an isolated environment with 17.9 millisecond cold starts, meaning the millisecond delay it takes a server to wake up and execute a command is practically zero. It has no container overhead, and it's 56 times cheaper than traditional virtual machine isolation.
Right, and Dax noted that letting the agent write JavaScript is actually 2.5 times more token efficient than Bash for those same tasks.
Sandboxing the agent in JavaScript prevents the bulldozer from leveling the building, sure, but it comes with a severe trade-off. You lose deep root-level command line access necessary for complex system operations.
Oh, so it's a trade-off.
Exactly. The core issue is that the race to fully automated workflows is vastly outpacing basic security protocols. We are plugging trillion parameter brains directly into the central nervous system of our operating systems and just hoping the sandboxes hold.
And this aggressive automation isn't just threatening the quantitative finance guys and developers fighting over root access. That same lack of friction is fundamentally dismantling the creative class.
Oh, the creatives are definitely feeling the heat today.
At Testing Catalog, and several outlets are reporting that Google has officially rolled out Vibe Design for their Stitch platform. It's an evolution of Galileo AI. You get this spatial canvas, and you literally just use voice-guided prompts to prototype user interfaces.
You can tell the AI, make it look more like a beehive, and it instantly generates the UI along with the React code.
And React isn't just a picture of a website. It is the fundamental structural code that modern web applications are built on. You speak, and the AI builds the functional architecture. Artemis Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind, is publicly endorsing it, showing off how you can iterate color variations and swap images just by talking. Naturally, users online are posting that designers are cooked.
Which taps into a heavily documented fear. A 2023 MIT study found that 65% of creative professionals actively feared job displacement.
I mean, can you blame them?
Not at all. But look at the reactions from established creators like at Yuquan Glue. There is deep skepticism that the human designer is entirely obsolete. Prompt-based generation is a feature, not a full replacement.
Like we saw with Figma AI.
Exactly. We have seen this cycle with Figma AI and Adobe Firefly. What Stitch actually does is blur the line between a client and a designer by creating a good enough UI prototype instantly. The second order effect is that it completely crushes junior design talent who traditionally handle those initial mock-ups.
So the entry-level jobs are gone.
Pretty much. It leaves the senior talent, the people who actually understand complex user psychology and deeply integrated design systems, relatively safe, because the AI cannot yet manage holistic product strategy.
But the media evolution goes way beyond just static app design. At Runway, Mel dropped a research preview at NVIDIA GTC involving their new real-time video generation model running on NVIDIA's Vera Rubin hardware.
This was mind-blowing.
The time to first frame is under 100 milliseconds. Instant, high-definition video generation based on live directing. You type or speak, and a photorealistic video of wolves running through the snow just happens. Immediately.
And we need to distinguish this from traditional 3D rendering, where computers spend hours calculating lighting, polygons, and physics for a single scene.
Right.
This is a generative model creating the frames in real time.
My concern is, if we can generate video instantly based on live directing, what happens to traditional media consumption? I mean, are movies over?
Well, Matthias Hyde, who develops AI engines for games, made a critical point regarding this. The implication goes far beyond making Hollywood movies faster. It is about real-time simulation in interactive media.
Like video games.
Right. He's working on AI-driven indie titles like Don't Pray. When the time to first frame drops below 100 milliseconds, the second-order effect is the death of static, pre-rendered entertainment. Yeah, why watch a fixed 2-hour movie when you can step into an interactive simulation that generates the narrative, the environment, and the characters in real time, reacting directly to your choices? The very definition of media is shifting from a broadcast model to a bespoke, localized simulation model.
We are hurtling toward a world where media is instantly generated, bespoke, and flawless, which is, a jarring contrast to the actual physical platforms we log into every day.
Yeah.
Because the legacy corporate infrastructure is practically decaying in front of us.
It really is falling apart.
Aloisio pointed out that Philips, the massive electronics brand, doesn't even make electronics anymore. They sold their domestic appliance division, including shavers and toothbrushes, to Hill House Capital for 4.4 billion euros back in 2021.
Yep.
And they had already divested their TV and audio divisions years before that. Today, they just license the Philips logo to whoever wants to pay for it, like Skyworth making TVs in North America. Philips is effectively a medical device company now.
It is pure brand arbitrage. I mean, these legacy brands operate like ghost ships, just renting out their paint jobs to third-party manufacturers while coasting on decades of consumer goodwill.
And even the modern platforms are breaking down structurally. At DataChaz posted a viral hack showing that LinkedIn's premium feature, the one that blurs out the photos of people looking at your profile to force you to subscribe, can be bypassed entirely just by opening Chrome DevTools and deleting a single CSS filter.
This is hilarious, honestly.
The blurring is entirely client-side, meaning LinkedIn is sending your browser the full, unredacted data of who looked at your profile, and then just using a flimsy line of visual code to ask your browser to cover it up. Deleting that CSS filter exposes the data because it was always sitting right there on your machine.
That represents a remarkably lazy corporate culture. They are relying on front-end visual illusions rather than actual back-end security to enforce a multi-billion-dollar paywall.
Speaking of platform infrastructure failing, Nikki Tabir, the head of product at X, posted a photo of himself physically inspecting server equipment in a data center. X just suffered its third major outage in 2 months. It hit the Grok AI features, stopped posts from loading entirely, and generated over 36,000 outage reports.
The connective tissue between all these stories is becoming very, very apparent.
Before we synthesize that, we have to look at one more massive fracture from the wire today regarding federal institutions. And again, we are impartially laying out the facts here. FBI Director Kash Patel posted an update citing a 490% increase in online child exploitation arrests, alongside big jumps in human trafficking arrests and dismantled criminal networks.
What?
He attributes these gains to relocating agents out of Washington and directly into the field. But strictly looking at the context driving the thousands of replies to that post, users are demanding transparency regarding the January 2026 release of 3.5 million pages of Jeffrey Epstein files. The replies point heavily to the recent House Oversight Committee subpoena, the Democratic walkouts, and the ongoing push for the Epstein Files Transparency Act of 2025.
And that public reaction is the linchpin of this entire segment. If we synthesize all of this, from Philips licensing out its identity, to LinkedIn faking its paywall security, to X's physical servers breaking down, to the intense public demands on federal institutions, the common denominator is a massive systemic fracture in institutional trust.
People just don't believe the systems anymore.
Exactly. Users realize they cannot trust the brand logos stamped on their hardware. They see that the barriers on major networking platforms are just code illusions. They are losing patience with the physical infrastructure of modern networks constantly failing. And on a civic level, they are loudly demanding unredacted receipts from federal authorities. The defining vibe of the internet right now is deep, systemic skepticism. The illusion of authority, whether it is a tech monopoly or a legacy institution, is dissolving in real time.
Looking at this raw wire, from the energy shock forcing AI efficiency to these powerful models operating outside the lab to this massive collapse in platform trust, I need a prediction from you for tomorrow. What happens next?
Well, as AI integration continues to push existing fragile cloud platforms to their absolute breaking point, which we are already seeing with X's Grok outages, we will see a massive accelerated pivot toward local-first software.
Local first.
Right. That hardware we discussed earlier, Carpathy's GB300 desk-side supercomputer, is the catalyst. Users and companies are going to abandon centralized cloud platforms entirely. They will run their own localized, highly efficient trillion-parameter models on personal hardware to reclaim their privacy, ensure reliability during corporate outages, and disconnect from an internet that feels increasingly manipulated and broken.
That is a massive architectural pivot for the entire tech ecosystem. And it leaves us with this final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. As legacy companies like Philips quietly license out their identity to third parties, and powerful tools like Google Stitch and Runway generate bespoke interactive realities on the fly in under 100 milliseconds, what happens when you can no longer verify if the platform you are on, the hardware you just bought, or the news you are watching is actually real? Thank you for joining us on the Daily Vibecasting. Stay sharp out there.